First contact and invasion. The skies over London darkened as the massive Krellic warship entered Earth's atmosphere, its obsidian hull reflecting no light as it descended through the clouds. People stood transfixed, recording the moment on their phones, a mix of fear and wonder on their faces. Similar scenes played out across the globe as 27 identical ships positioned themselves above major cities. Dr. Elena Reeves watched the live stream from her laboratory at the International Space Research Center in Geneva. As the leading xenobiologist on the planet, she had spent her career preparing for this moment, humanity's first contact with extraterrestrial intelligence. Yet nothing in her studies had prepared her for the reality unfolding before her eyes. Dr. Reeves, they're requesting to speak with Earth's leaders, her assistant, Marcus announced, his voice trembling slightly. The UN Secretary-General has called an emergency session. They want you there. Within hours, Elena found herself seated at the United Nations headquarters in New York, alongside world leaders, military generals, and scientific experts. The holographic image of the Krellic ambassador hovered above the center of the room, a tall, seven-limbed being with iridescent skin and 4 sets of compound eyes that seemed to take in everything at once. "We are the Krellic Empire," the ambassador announced, its voice a synthetic translation that echoed through the chamber. "We have observed your planet for decades. Your resources are valuable. Your species is not." The bluntness of the statement sent murmurs through the assembly. "We offer you a choice. Surrender your planetary resources and accept relocation to our designated habitation zones, or face immediate conquest. You have 48 Earth hours to decide." Before anyone could respond, the transmission ended. The room erupted in chaos. Military leaders argued for immediate defensive measures, politicians debated diplomatic approaches, and scientists pleaded for more time to understand the aliens' technology. Elena remained silent, her mind racing. Something about the Krellics' biology had caught her attention, their compound eyes, the way they moved, the shimmer of their skin. There was something familiar there, something she could potentially work with. "They're not invincible," she finally said, silencing the room. "No species is." 2 days later, Earth gave its answer. Humanity would not surrender. The response came not from diplomats, but from the combined military forces of Earth, launching a coordinated strike against the Krellic ships. It was a desperate move, driven by the knowledge that submission meant extinction in all but name. The attack failed spectacularly. Krellic shields absorbed conventional missiles like water, and their retaliatory strikes reduced military bases to smoldering craters. Their ground forces, mechanized battle units controlled by Krellic minds, began methodical takeovers of strategic locations. From her hastily established underground lab outside Geneva, Elena watched the reports flood in. The Krellics had clearly anticipated Earth's resistance, yet there was something in their tactics that struck her as overconfident. "They're treating us like insects," she told her team, now expanded to include military engineers and hackers from 6 countries. "They conquered so many worlds that they've developed a playbook, and they're not deviating from it." "How does that help us?" asked Colonel Wei, the Chinese military liaison assigned to her team. Elena projected a series of microscopic images on the wall. "These are cellular samples we managed to obtain from a damaged Krellic battle unit. Their biology is silicon-based, not carbon-based like ours. But more importantly, their neural network operates on frequencies similar to our insect species." She turned to face the team, her eyes bright with realization. "They're dismissing us as primitive because our technology doesn't mirror theirs. But that very difference might be our advantage." Over the next 3 weeks, as Krellic forces established control zones across every continent, Elena's international team worked tirelessly. They studied recovered Krellic technology, reverse-engineered what they could, and developed prototypes based on Elena's theories. The breakthrough came from an unexpected source. Ayanda Nkosi, a South African entomologist who had joined Elena's team. "Certain frequencies disrupt insect communication, Ayanda explained, demonstrating a simple device that emitted pulses that confused nearby ants. If the Krellick's neural networks operate on similar principles, they tested the theory on a captured Krellick battle unit. The results were immediate. The unit's movements became erratic before shutting down completely. It won't work on their ship's shielding, Elena cautioned. But for ground forces and short-range communications, this could give us an edge. The resistance movement grew organically, spreading through encrypted channels and word of mouth. Scientists shared Elena's discoveries. Engineers built disruptor devices from common electronics, and ordinary citizens became guerrilla fighters. In Sao Paulo, resistance fighters disabled a Krellick patrol with homemade disruptors. In Mumbai, hackers momentarily infiltrated a Krellick communication network. In Cairo, locals reclaimed a neighborhood that had been a Krellick stronghold. Small victories accumulated, but the Krellicks responded with increased brutality. They razed entire cities that showed significant resistance, turning them into examples. Yet for every city destroyed, 2 more joined the fight. 6 months into the occupation, Elena received an encrypted message from a resistance cell in Osaka. They had managed to capture a high-ranking Krellick officer and needed her expertise to interrogate it. The journey to Japan was perilous, traveling through Krellick-controlled territories with false identification and the constant fear of detection. When Elena finally reached the hidden bunker beneath Osaka's industrial district, she found herself face to face with the first conscious Krellick she had ever encountered up close. The alien was secured in a modified chamber, surrounded by disruptor fields that kept it docile. Its compound eyes fixed on Elena as she entered. "You are the one they call Reeves," the Krellick said through a translation device. It wasn't a question. "I am," Elena replied, surprised by the recognition. "Your species continues to perplex the Empire. The Sovereign Commander has placed a particular bounty on you." Elena felt a chill run down her spine, but pressed on. "Why are you so determined to eradicate us? Our planet's resources aren't unique." The Krellick's skin shifted color slightly, what Elena recognized as their equivalent of laughter. "Resources are plentiful, yes, but species that can resist the Empire are rare. You were supposed to capitulate within days, like all the others. Your continued defiance is inconvenient. We're just getting started," Elena said, leaning closer to the containment field. "Tell me about your ship's propulsion systems." The Krellick's skin darkened. "You believe you can win this war. Your primitive technologies have already adapted to yours," Elena interrupted. "We're not as primitive as you think." What the Krellick didn't know was that while they spoke, resistance teams around the world were preparing for a coordinated strike. The information gathered from the captured officer would be the final piece they needed. As Elena continued her interrogation, learning crucial details about Krellick ship vulnerabilities, the first phase of humanity's true counteroffensive was already underway. The Krellicks had laughed at humanity's supposed weakness, but they were about to discover just how adaptable humans could be when fighting for their survival. The unexpected resistance. High Commander Zex Terrell stood on the bridge of the Krellick flagship, his iridescent skin pulsing with dark patterns that signaled his mounting frustration. The holographic displays surrounding him showed reports from across the planet. Reports of failure, of resistance, of Krellick units disabled by human counterattacks. "Impossible," he hissed, dismissing a particularly disturbing report from the North American sector. "These primitives should have been subjugated by now. The Sovereign will demand explanations." Commander, his second-in-command, approached cautiously. "We've lost contact with Science Officer Krendaru. The last transmission placed him in the island region they call Japan." Zex Terrell's eyes narrowed. "Find him, and locate this human scientist, this Reeves. Her disruption of our operations has become unacceptable." Halfway across the world, Elena Reeves was leading a briefing in what had once been a subway station beneath Berlin. Representatives from resistance cells across Europe huddled around makeshift displays and communication equipment. "The Osaka interrogation confirmed what we suspected," Elena explained, projecting schematics onto the wall. Krellic ships are vulnerable at these junction points. Their shields operate on rotating frequencies, impenetrable but predictable. And their commanders never expected us to get close enough to exploit that. Colonel Rashid, formerly of the Egyptian Air Force, studied the schematics with a practiced eye. So we need to synchronize our attacks precisely with these frequency shifts. But how do we get close enough? Elena nodded to a young woman seated in the corner. Maya Chen, once a video game developer from Singapore, now stood before military leaders and scientists. "We've reverse-engineered their short-range transports," she said, displaying images of sleek, oval crafts. "Not perfectly, but enough to mimic their signatures. Combined with the disruptor technology, we can approach their capital ships undetected, briefly." "How briefly?" someone asked. 3 minutes, maybe 4, Maya admitted. "After that, their systems will recognize the anomaly." 4 minutes to save the world, Rashid murmured. "It'll have to be enough." The plan was audacious. Simultaneous strikes on 7 Krellic capital ships using captured transports, each carrying a specialized EMP device designed to exploit the shield frequency vulnerabilities. Success would temporarily disable the Krellic's orbital advantage and allow ground forces to reclaim key territories. Preparation took weeks. Teams trained in captured Krellic transports, technicians fine-tuned the EMP devices, and resistance cells worldwide prepared for coordinated ground assaults timed to the ship strikes. 2 days before the operation, Elena received an encrypted message from Marcus, her former assistant, who now ran a resistance intelligence hub in Nairobi. "Elena, the Krellics are hunting you specifically," the message read. "Intercepts suggest they believe eliminating you will demoralize resistance. Exercise extreme caution." Elena had expected this. Her name had spread among resistance fighters as a symbol of hope. The scientist who found the alien's weakness, she knew the Krellics would eventually target her directly. The night before the operation, Elena addressed the strike teams via secure broadcast. "Tomorrow, we show the Krellic Empire that humanity isn't just another conquest," she said, her voice steady despite her exhaustion. "They came here expecting submission. They'll leave understanding resilience. Every one of you carries the hopes of our entire species." Dawn broke over Berlin as Elena prepared to join the European strike team. Their target was the capital ship hovering over Prague. Similar teams were preparing in Sao Paulo, Cairo, Mumbai, Sydney, Tokyo, and Toronto. As they boarded the modified Krellic transport, Colonel Rashid handed Elena a sidearm. "Just in case," he said grimly, "though I pray you won't need it." The transport lifted off silently, its systems broadcasting copied Krellic identification codes. As they approached the massive capital ship, Elena felt her heart pounding. Everything hinged on Maya's programming and the accuracy of their intelligence. 3 minutes until shield frequency shift. Maya announced from the pilot's seat, "Ready disruptors." The transport slipped through the outer defense perimeter, electronic countermeasures masking their approach. On screens around the cabin, Elena watched similar reports coming in from the other teams, all proceeding according to plan. 1 minute, Maya called out. "Preparing for docking sequence." Suddenly, alarms blared throughout the craft. "They've detected us," Rashid shouted. "Too soon," Maya said, fingers flying across the controls. "Something's wrong with our calculations." Elena made a split-second decision. "Proceed with emergency deployment. We won't get another chance." The transport veered toward the predetermined weak point in the capital ship's shielding. Defense turrets swiveled to target them, energy weapons charging. "Brace," Maya shouted as the first blast struck their shields. Rashid activated the deployment sequence. The specialized EMP device extended from the transport's underbelly, aimed at the capital ship's vulnerable junction point. The timing would be milliseconds off from their original plan, but it might be enough. Deploying in 3, 2, 1. The EMP fired, a concentrated pulse of energy calibrated specifically to the Krellick shielding frequency. For a terrifying moment, nothing happened. Then, sections of the massive ship began to darken, power fluctuations cascading across its surface. "It's working," Elena exclaimed, watching as the ship's defense systems powered down sequentially. Similar reports flooded in from other teams: success in Mumbai and Toronto, partial success in Sydney, Cairo, and Tokyo, failure only in Sao Paulo where the transport had been destroyed before deployment. The capital ship above Prague was crippled, its main systems offline and its communication with the Krellick fleet severed. Ground resistance forces immediately launched their coordinated attacks on Krellick strongholds, facing significantly reduced opposition without orbital support. Their transport, badly damaged from defensive fire, limped away from the disabled capital ship. Maya struggled to maintain control as they descended toward the rendezvous point outside Prague. "We did it," Elena said softly, watching the Krellick ship growing distant, now surrounded by smaller resistance aircraft. "We actually did it." The transport crash-landed in a field, its systems failing in the final moments. The team emerged bruised but alive, greeted by resistance fighters who had witnessed the capital ship's disabling. Over the next 72 hours, the tide of the war shifted dramatically. Without their orbital advantage, Krellick ground forces found themselves outmaneuvered by humans who knew the terrain and had adapted to Krellick tactics. Captured Krellick technology was turned against its creators with devastating effectiveness. High Commander Zex Terrell, forced to retreat to his crippled flagship, received the ultimate humiliation: a direct communication from the Sovereign, visible to his entire command staff. "The Empire does not accept failure," the Sovereign's image pronounced. "You were assigned a simple conquest of a pre-spacefaring species. Your incompetence is noted." "Sovereign," Zex Terrell pleaded, "these humans are unlike any species we've encountered. They adapt. You will withdraw all forces from the system," the Sovereign interrupted. "The Empire's resources will not be wasted further on your failed campaign." 3 weeks later, Elena stood on a hill outside Geneva, watching as the last Krellick ships departed Earth's atmosphere. Intelligence gathered from captured officers suggested the Empire would not return, at least not until humanity was properly categorized as a serious threat rather than an easy conquest. Marcus joined her, looking up at the sky where the alien fleet was rapidly becoming indistinguishable from stars. "Do you think they'll be back?" Elena nodded slowly. "Eventually, but we'll be ready. We've learned more about advanced technology in 1 year of fighting than we might have in a century of peaceful development. And we've learned about ourselves," Marcus added. "How quickly we can unite when we need to." Elena smiled, thinking of the global cooperation that had emerged from the chaos. Scientists, soldiers, and civilians from every nation working together without hesitation. "The Krellicks thought they were facing a planet of primitive, disorganized creatures," she said. "They never understood what they were really up against, a species that thrives on challenge, that grows stronger when threatened." As night fell over a free Earth, humanity began the long process of rebuilding, not just their cities and infrastructure, but their place in a universe they now knew was both more dangerous and more full of possibilities than they had ever imagined. The aliens had laughed at humanity's supposed weakness. Now they understood the truth. Underestimating humans was the last mistake any invader should make.